What's up everyone, I'm Eldridge, and this video will be to update the reviews on the closed beta test premium ships. As promised, here's the addendum to my ship reviews for the closed beta test premium ships. Even with every ship in the game getting their AP ammunition nerfed, the Aurora's AP ammunition is still worse than that of the St. Louis. However, that's not such a big problem. I mean, you weren't using the AP ammunition before the patch, you were using HE ammunition. And now HE ammunition after the patch is really good. With 2500 maximum damage, it's just as good as the 2500 max damage on the St. Louis. And the St. Louis has basically also been reduced to firing HE ammunition. As with all other ships, its turning circle got buffed by a whopping 330 meters. Holy crap, that is a big buff. But don't forget, the Aurora still only has a 12,000 horsepower engine and only does 20 knots maximum speed. So while this change definitely helps you, the Aurora is still very much a sluggish ship. But overall, the Aurora's performance has definitely gone up, and my opinion on it has changed a little bit. Firstly though, we'll have to amend the scores. The battle between the Aurora and the St. Louis ended up being an 0-4, but seeing how their guns perform so incredibly similar now and even have the same maximum damage in their preferred ammunition, the category of guns is no longer won by the St. Louis, but a tie between the two, so it's only an 0-3. Now I know this might sound just as terrible, but it definitely isn't. The Aurora catching up to the St. Louis in guns is a big deal. My opinion is now, I still wouldn't really recommend the Aurora if you're looking for a ship that can do a lot of damage and can generate a lot of experience and credits for you. But if you're looking for a premium ship that offers a fun low-tier experience, you could do worse than the Aurora. And if you really like how the St. Louis plays, then getting the Aurora is not a bad call, because now it does actually play very similar to the St. Louis. Oh, Gremiashi. You really scared me there for a second. In the original changes of 0.3.1, 3 of the premium ships received a rudder shift time nerf, the Gremiashi being one of them. It went from 3.5 seconds up to 6 seconds. That was a very big deal. So one tactic for the Gremiashi is to fire your guns and then hold right mouse button to lock your guns in place and then shift very hard to one side and then immediately shift back to the other side. And your good rudder shift time would allow you to dodge a good portion of shots, but then shift back to your old position so you could immediately fire after reloading. But with a rudder shift time change to 6 seconds, that was impossible, and you lost a lot of DPS when you still tried to do that tactic. It also made it so much harder to maneuver. Now luckily they decided to get rid of this rudder shift time change. But at the same time, the Gremiashi had its turning circle buffed like all the other cruisers and battleships. No other destroyer in the game had its turning circle buffed with this patch. The Gremiashi is the only one. And it got it buffed from 630 meters, which is one of the worst turning circles for a destroyer, to 510 meters, which is one of the best turning circles for a destroyer. It's crazy. And with the rudder shift time going back to the 3.5 seconds that it had before, it's amazingly maneuverable now, and plays so much better than it did before. It is also the only destroyer to still have usable AP ammunition. For all other destroyers, the AP ammunition has been nerfed so hard that you should just use HE ammunition unless you fire at other destroyers. But even firing at other destroyers, you might do quite a bit more damage with high explosive, and of course having the chance to knock out their engine, knock out their steering and all of that stuff. But the Gremiashi can actually use its AP ammunition against light cruisers. And if you get citadel penetrations, you'll still get more damage than you could ever get with the HE. The Gremiashi is now definitely an absolutely unique destroyer. Now I know I didn't do this in the review because it was my first review and I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do my reviews yet. But so I'll do the scorecard for the Gremiashi now, comparing it to the Nicholas and the Minikaze. The Nicholas and the Gremiashi both come at 13,100 hit points, whereas the Minikaze only has 10,900. And so obviously both the Nicholas and the Gremiashi get a point in this category. Speed, a category previously completely dominated by the Minikaze, is now a draw between the Minikaze and the Gremiashi. That 510 meter turning circle is absurd. and the Gremiashi still has a good speed, and while it does have a slightly slower rudder shift time, it's still so incredibly good. So point to both the Gremiashi and the Minekaze to show that they are better than the Nicholas. In concealment, the Minekaze is unbeatable. That silly little thing is so incredibly stealthy, and that stealthiness is what makes the Minekaze so unique and so awesome among the Japanese destroyers, because it packs the punch in the torpedoes that the lower tiers lack, but is still incredibly stealthy and can get so very close to the enemy without being detected. The Gremiashi sweeps guns off the table. Holy crap, are the guns good now. Before the patch I always argued for the American guns because they are good, but the Gremiashi has almost 2 kilometers more range than the Nicholas. Torpedoes are of course won by the Minekaze because it's a Japanese destroyer and they have amazing torpedoes. Don't get me wrong, the higher tier ones aren't really that good, but the Minekaze's torpedoes are badass. And the incredibly unimportant category of AA goes to the Nicholas. Congratulations, Nicholas, you have the best of the worst anti-aircraft. And so the final score is 2-3-3, although one of those points for the Nicholas is AA and is really not that important, but that just shows you how incredibly good the Gremiashi is. It does also show you how very close these destroyers are at tier 5. The Nicholas, the Minekaze and the Gremiashi are all great vehicles. I know Minekaze captains are gonna call me a heretic, but holy crap is the Gremiashi good. And therein lies the problem, I actually think it's too good. It's a premium ship after all, it shouldn't be the best ship at its tier. Now please Wargaming, do not nerf the rudder shift time again. That makes the ship incredibly stupidly unfun to play. Do something about its guns, or reverse the turning circle change or something like that. But don't fuck with the turret traverse time or the rudder shift time, because that's stupid. I don't think there is a ship in the game that can make use of the turning circle change as much as the Murmansk. The turning circle went from 820 meters to 590 meters, a boost of 230 meters. But the great thing about this is that the Murmansk also has a rudder shift time of 5.0 seconds, one of the lowest shift times of any cruiser, making its mobility performance crazy. It really does perform like a destroyer now. There are no real changes in the scoring, because it still compares pretty much the same to the Omaha as it did before. They're still such incredibly similar ships, the score just won't change. And my opinion also hasn't changed, this is still the most balanced premium ship in the game right now. Its power level is slightly weaker than that of the Omaha, but it gets a fun quirkiness in return, and that quirkiness is that it literally handles like a destroyer. And that just makes it really fun to play, while also being a good ship. So if you're asking yourself which is the most balanced of the in-game purchasable premium ships, definitely the Murmansk. After this patch, the Albany turns slightly better, just like every other ship in the game. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Albany. It's still an abject failure worthy of mocking, but it's not worthy of my time, and so I'm just going to recycle the mole people joke. No change of score, no change of opinion, the ship is still fucking terrible, and you're still much better off spending your 500 gold on absolutely nothing whatsoever. Oh boy, Atlanta! Have you ever gotten a nice turning circle buff? When I reviewed the Atlanta, the thing I really didn't like about it was the maneuverability. I felt that it was just too sluggish for the type of role that it's supposed to take. It has to get way too close to be so incredibly stiff in its maneuvering. And as such, it always just seemed to get torn to pieces when I played it. Especially because people just know how good it is now, and they focus you when they see you come in range. So this turning circle buff, it has made the Atlanta wonderful and playable and one of the best ships in the game. A little bit of hyperbole. I did think it was one of the better premium ships, and I still think it is one of the better premium ships. When compared to the other tier 7 cruisers, it hasn't really gotten incredibly OP or anything. Everyone got the turning circle buff after all, but I think that it was an important change for the Atlanta. It's one of the things that I said, I think it should be a little bit more maneuverable or get a little bit more range. They gave it more maneuverability, and it's great. It plays so much better now. The HE ammunition change is actually something that benefits the Atlanta a lot. It turns this ship into the most brutal arson you have ever encountered. just of the volume of shots that you put down range. 14 shots per volley, 12 of those volleys per minute. Yes, you only have a 5% chance to set the opponent on fire, but when you fling 168 shots at him per minute, one of those is gonna set him on fire. And he can be lucky if it's only one. So let's sum it up. One of its biggest weaknesses is gone, and one of its biggest strengths, being the guns, has been improved. Do I think it's worth getting? Hell yeah, it's worth getting. Ah, Kitakami, why do you do this to me, Wargaming? Please, just, jeez. So it got the smoke generator in the patch. Did that do anything? Of course not, because they didn't give it a standard smoke generator, they gave it a special one. One that lasts only 15 seconds, which means you can't actually lay a smoke screen, you can just use it to get away sometimes. But your concealment is still so bad that it really doesn't help you all that much. And do you remember how I gave the Kitakami the speed category? Turns out Wargaming thought it was a really good idea to accompany this smoke charge change with a nerf to the Kitakami. Yes, it now does only 32 knots top speed instead of 36. Why? Nobody fucking knows. Apparently the ship was way too fast and way too strong, and so it just had to get nerfed. So when we looked at the score, that came out to 032, well, I have to take the speed category from the Kitakami and give it to the Mogami, which leaves us at -1, 4, and 2. Good job, Kitakami, you're the only premium ship with a negative score. My opinion, you should absolutely not waste your money on this thing. 9,600 gold is way too much for this gimmick of a ship. It just doesn't do anything. And even though the torpedo reload went down to 109 seconds, the torpedo reload was not the problem. The problem is that after you launch your torpedoes, you fucking die because you're slow, you don't turn well, you have shitty concealment. And so, no. If you really dig this ship for its history, or for how it looks, or for the novelty of having a million torpedoes, get it, but be aware that it is never going to be worth it. It is so much money. I'm not going to include the Yubari, Sims, or Warspite, because the Yubari and the Sims are going to get their own full reviews very soon, and I'm going to make a separate video on the Warspite, because I have a bunch of stuff to say about it and that would just make this video way too long. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments. If you have any replays for World of Tanks or World of Warships that you would like me to commentate, please send them at cloakingdonkey@hotmail.com. Tomorrow you'll get the full review on the Yubari, but until then, I've been Eldritch Master Donkey, and I'll see you in another video.